everybody, welcome back to another episode of Cavanaugh's Corner. Today on the show, I'm going to be talking about the next film in the Rambo series. This is Rambo, First Blood Part 2, or as a lot of people just call it, Rambo 2. But I really love this film. This is another one of these action movies that's completely ridiculous. The way I always talk about this film is that the first film is about PTSD, and this is a fantasy film. This is one of the most ridiculous movies ever made. Do I love it? Absolutely. I love this film. It's definitely a guilty pleasure of mine, and I was really glad to see that they put this out in 4K and that they completely restored it, much like the other two Rambo films. And again, if you haven't seen this movie, it's kind of a classic 80s action film. This is one of those movies that kind of started off the big, burly action movie kind of thing that started with like the Terminator and movies like that. And Stallone in this, yet again, is awesome. I mean, definitely not as an emotional performance as the first film. This movie definitely won't have you tearing up at the end. But again, it is a great action film. The way I always describe this movie is it took the United States almost 20 years to lose the war in Vietnam. It took Rambo 95 minutes to win it. That's kind of the way that I always talk about this film. It's completely bonkers. But again, it's a great action film, and this is one that I was really excited to see in 4K with HDR and everything. As with the first film, Studio Canal went back and completely restored the film, and I gotta say, this looks amazing. This is a great 4K disc. I loved this disc. This does not have some of the black level problems of the first disc, mainly because the movie only has a few night scenes. It's like 2 or 3, I think like 2 or 3 night scenes. But the movie absolutely shines on 4K. It is amazing. Detail level on this is ridiculous. When Rambo is sharpening his knife near the beginning of the movie, you can make out like little nicks and scratches on the knife. When Rambo's shooting people, you really get like detail of like blood and gunshots, and it's pretty brutal. The movie is extremely violent if you haven't seen it, and the level of destruction that happens during this film is kind of insane. But the detail is, like I mentioned, it's crazy. The nylon of like Rambo's belt, it can be seen. Little details that I really never noticed before. The stubble on Stallone's face is, you can almost count the hairs on his stubble. It's crazy how unbelievable this disc looks. Again, during the night scenes, the black levels, yet again, are not perfect, but they are a little better than some of the stuff I mentioned in the First Blood review. It is definitely a way better picture on this than I'd seen in any other cut of this film. It is unreal how beautiful some of the scenes look. There are a few scenes where the cinematographer decided to go with like a soft filter for kind of the emotional moments, and that didn't age well. Superman the movie does that a lot too. A lot of older films do that. But again, is it beautiful to look at? Yes, it is. It's definitely a beautiful film to look at, even though it's extremely violent and sometimes downright nasty. There's a scene where Rambo is kind of in like a mud pit, and it's kind of disgusting. He's got leeches on him. You can see some really nasty stuff in that pit. It's gross. It's really gross, but yet again, it just shows how awesome this 4K format is. It's incredible. The HDR on this disc is fantastic yet again. Like I mentioned, the sunrises and sunsets, the jungle, the blood, the explosions, especially the explosions in this film, look unreal. They are unbelievably bright. You get those oranges and reds and yellows that you just can't see otherwise. It is really insane how beautiful this movie looks. again, just like the other disc that I reviewed before for First Blood, there is no Dolby Vision on this disc. It's just HDR10, but the HDR10 does work overtime on this one, and I really enjoyed it. Now, the sound on this, yet again, it's just a regular 5.1 DTS HD master audio. However, much like First Blood, the audio does seem a lot clearer. It does seem a lot more refined. The dialogue seems to be centered better. I mean, it's just weird because it very well could be the exact same mix, but to my ears, it sounded just a little better. It sounded just like they kicked it up a notch a little bit. Even the bass in this seemed a little better. There's a couple moments in the film where gunfire rings out, and they placed it in the surrounds really well, much like the first film. Again, they did a really good job with the sound and the video on this. It's a really solid disc. Yet again, like First Blood, I'm going to be repeating myself a little bit here, but they did include a bunch of special features on that secondary Blu-ray disc, which is yet again a restored version of the film. It's not the old Blu-ray disc, it's a new Blu-ray disc in this one as well. And they included, again, a couple new special features that I'd never seen before, little featurettes and things like that. They also included the documentary that, you know, was in the old Blu-rays and DVDs. And again, interesting watches, very cool stuff. The 4K Blu-ray only has the one special feature of the commentary, so all the special features are on the secondary the regular 1080 Blu-ray disc, but they're worth a watch. That's definitely some cool stuff. There is a touching little featurette about a kid that was dying of cancer that Stallone invited to the set and actually spent time with him. I think his name is Sean Baker, and that really touched me. That really goes to show that Stallone, even though being a huge, gigantic star, was nice enough to take the time to fulfill this kid's wish and spend time with him, even though he was shooting a fairly grueling film. It was really cool to see that, and that was really something I never knew before, and that was something that really got me, and that was nice to see. Again, I'm not sure if Sean passed away years ago or if he survived that cancer. But it was really nice to see that they included that on this disc. Anyway, I highly recommend Rambo First Blood Part 2, just like I highly recommended First Blood. This disc here really is a winner. I'd say in some ways, even more so than the first film. This one really is one of those ones where if you think you've seen the movie years ago, rewatch it on this, and you're going to experience it again for the first time. It's a really great transfer. They did a great job with the restoration, even though they yet again misspelled it in the special features. They spelled it like restaurant. I don't know, whatever. But they did a really good job, and I highly recommend you pick this one up. Yet again, this one was $15 like First Blood was. Can't beat it. It's a great deal. Go out and get yourself First Blood Part 2 on Blu-ray, on 4K Blu-ray, I should say. It's a great disc. Anyway, I'm Andrew Cavanaugh. Thank you for coming back to Cavanaugh's Corner. If you like this, hit subscribe and like the video, and we'll see you next time. Take it easy.